Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the new search advertising, how privacy, retail media, AI, and Gen Z are changing the game. My name is Evelyn Mitchell. I'm a senior analyst at Insider Intelligence based in Virginia, and I'm joined by the coolest panel of all time. We have Timothy Jensen, senior search engine marketing specialist at M&T Bank, based out of Albany, and Lily Ray, senior director of SEO and head of organic research at Amsiv Digital in New York City. Before we begin, let us know where you're tuning in from. You can do that by using the chat window to the right of the video feed. And most importantly, ask us questions. So with that, let's get started. So Google is facing more competition in search right now than it has at any point in its history. And these last few weeks, Google has shed light on exactly how it plans to tackle that competition. Talking about Google I/O and Google Marketing Live, a couple of its kind of big events that it holds annually. So I would love to know from you both what product developments will have the biggest impact for search advertisers. And we can start maybe with Lily.
Awesome. Yeah. So thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. So I specifically kind of work in the SEO space. So some of the big announcements that Google made at Google I/O a couple of weeks ago definitely have a huge impact on organic search marketing as well as Google Ads. I think one of the big ones that our industry is very focused on is what Google calls SGE, Search Generative Experience. And a lot of us were kind of waiting with anticipation to see what this would look like. And it's basically Google's kind of version of what a lot of us are familiar with ChatGPT, but kind of like integrated into the search results using their own AI technology. And they are testing it now. A lot of us in the industry, including myself, have been testing it for about a week. And you can see pretty substantial changes to how the search results look. So that's still a work in progress for Google, but if they roll it out in any like similar way to the way that it looks right now in the tests, it's absolutely going to be a fundamental shift to how Google search results look. There's also some other features that Google talked about at Google I/O. So some updates to Maps. They announced something called Perspectives, which will highlight more individual content contributors directly in the search results as well. And a lot of updates to their chatbot called Bard, which is basically, again, like ChatGPT, their own version of it. But Bard will be integrating with some other Google products like Gmail and Google Calendar and things like that. So exciting times, lots of AI features.
Yeah, AI is definitely kind of, I would say, the number one theme we'll be discussing today. It's really hard to talk about search without talking about AI right now, especially when we talk about the future of search. Tim, what are you looking out for from Google?
Sure. Also glad to be here. Thanks for having me. So for me, I work primarily on the ads end of things. So Google Marketing Live in particular was an event that I paid attention to. Obviously, some topics that merged over from I/O. But as Lily mentioned, the search generative experience being kind of a major shift in how Google does things. They are kind of talking about things on the organic end first. We were kind of curious, those of us that work on the paid end, how ads would be integrated into it. So they did show kind of a couple tidbits of how ads might be worked in, like someone asking a question and that may have shopping results that show up right in that whole chat box and have a sponsored link on top. So again, as an organic, it is a very different way of ads being plugged in versus 3 or 4 links with a shopping result to the right or such. So will be interesting to see how users choose to engage with that. Some other updates that they had were all around the topic of AI, as mentioned, and not a surprise to anyone. But AI in the process of building campaigns within Google Ads, where you can pop in a URL, describe what you want to do with the campaign, and basically spin out headlines and descriptions for you. So again, it may be of more use to some advertisers than others. Personally, I work in a very alliance heavy industry where something like that may be good as like starting point, but you'll still need to kind of look at what's going on there. One of the more interesting features they showed off was a tool for like image generation, particularly for Performance Max, which for those of you that work in the ad space, anyone that's talked to a Google rep has probably had that pitched to them. But for those who aren't familiar with it, basically it's their all-in-one ad campaign solution where you provide targeting, you provide images, copy, and it automatically formats ads to appear across everything from search to display to what they call discovery, which can appear like on Gmail, YouTube, Google Home Feed, on YouTube itself, on Maps. So basically an all-in-one solution that's very automated, but creating images for all the different sizes that you need can be kind of a pain there. So that was kind of interesting as a potential solution there. They also mentioned some controls that may help with more control over Performance Max and such. Another tool was like a brand name tool where you can plug in your brand. So with Google's being more loose with keyword matching, you can actually say, I only want to target this brand. So yeah, kind of a whirlwind of stuff, but those are a few items there.
Yeah, it's very much a whirlwind, but it's all very exciting. I think one of the biggest themes that is important to note is how Google is weaving in those elements of control. It seems like maybe it has heard the feedback about Performance Max, that kind of relinquishing control over where and how budgets are spent doesn't feel great to a lot of advertisers, especially when there's just very little visibility, even in reporting, to see what the distribution looked like. So I think it's heartening to hear those little kind of seeds of, we're trying to bring more control to these kind of balance control with the cost saving and kind of efficiency benefits of these AI powered and automated tools. So I'm really excited to see how it all shakes out for advertisers, and then of course for consumers, how behavior normalizes around this really quite revolutionary change. I've seen quite a few LinkedIn posts from people like yourself, Lily, checking out what's going on in the tool, how it works. I've seen some interesting kind of prompts folks are exploring. So really neat time to be paying attention to the space. What are some of the biggest remaining questions that you all have and that your clients have about the search, how the search market will fare in this AI assisted future? And we can start maybe with Tim.
Sure. I think looking first from an advertiser perspective, I'm in-house in the financial services world. There are other industries, healthcare and such, that are very highly regulated. So I think that's very top of mind for advertisers, is thinking, how can we mix using AI to assist us while still making sure we're compliant with what we're allowed to say and where we're allowed to be. There's a lot of questions there. From a user standpoint, it definitely is a huge shift in like how they approach search. I know there's some topics we're going to talk about later about how some of that's already shifted with Gen Z, but even from the general mindset of, okay, you go to Google and type something in, or even like what voice search was a few years ago. I see a lot being shared around the novelty of it by people that are in the tech industry. I think honestly, I maybe still a little skeptical about how that's going to go into the workflow of just your average consumer. But it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think those are great points. I think on the organic search side, it's a little like there's a lot of remaining questions about the implications of these technologies on not just SEO as a field, but of course the flow of traffic throughout the internet to many different types of companies and sites. I think from what we're seeing so far, it makes sense that Google would only display like AI driven search results for certain types of queries. There's others where it wouldn't make sense to do that. And then Google has also explicitly said there's certain categories where they just won't show AI answers because it's not like safe, for example. And like that's like heavily medical content and things like that. But there's definitely a lot of almost like existential questions about how Google is, first of all, like getting this information. Who are they sourcing it from? Are they displaying those sources in a manner that is fair to publishers? If they're not, are publishers going to continue to feel incentivized to publish as much content on Google? And then if they don't, is the quality of the AI, results going to be good over time? So there's a lot of these big overarching questions. And I think one thing that our industry is very focused on right now is really kind of encouraging Google to really think about how they link and source the information that they're using to pull in the AI answers. Bing, for example, has had their own version of kind of what Google's doing with AI answers and in Bing Chat for about 4 months now. And they built this product with many, many different links to the places that they're pulling in answers from, including ads as well. So it's a work in progress, but I think we're all very anxious to see how this plays out with website traffic and what impact this will have with click-through rates and the flow of traffic throughout the board or across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to your point on how traffic will flow through the internet, I mean, the search engine, kind of the reason search is so prominent and so foundational to a lot of, ad strategies, is because it's like the door to the internet for most consumers. I think one of the things that I find interesting about those kinds of existential questions is the connection between search and programmatic advertising for the long tail of publishers, where they rely on Google to filter or to funnel end users to their pages. If the users have no reason to go to the pages because the AI does its job and really does help streamline that consumer experience from the search engine, then it makes sense that there would be smaller monetizable audiences. So that could be a problem. There's a lot of questions, and I know Google and Microsoft are actively engaging with the publisher community to help kind of alleviate those concerns or start broaching that conversation. But it's still very early days. We have a lot of questions to answer, so definitely important to keep an eye on this space. I think another thing that's a really big question mark is how privacy factors into all of this, and that's kind of a broader AI question. It does matter in search as well. I've seen some data that suggests consumers they trust search results less when they feel like they have been personalized in a way to them, which is one of the kind of biggest use cases of these AI chatbot interfaces. So lots to determine there, and consumers will need some time with these tools in market to explore them and then integrate them more kind of naturally into their life and into the way that they interface with the internet. It's always going to take time. We just have to see what happens. And of course, then the Microsoft and Google will probably also continue to iterate on these tools and change things. So it'll take time. Not that everyone really wants to wait and see what happens. We kind of want to know now. So we opened by talking about Google and how all of these products that it's launching, how it's faring amid increasing competition in the search market. And if we kind of reframe that question a little bit, it's very clear that the search marketplace is more diverse now than it ever has been. We've got all the traditional search engines and their kind of conversational projects and interfaces, and we've got retail media, which has come in and stolen a bunch of the market of ad dollars in this space. We've got social networks coming in more on the organic side now, but paid is also starting to ramp up with those platforms. So lots going on, and consumers are searching on different platforms for different reasons. We've seen some research that shows consumers tend to start searching in different places depending on where they are in their purchase journey. So there's some interesting stuff there, but obviously those things evolve. They will always continue to evolve. So we have kind of a snapshot of where things were. Where are they going? Let's talk about how consumers are evolving their use of all these search touch points, and how advertisers are evolving their strategies to position themselves for success as consumers kind of move beyond Google. Lily, would you like to talk about this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think to your point, there's so many different potential starting points where people can start their search journey. And even if they're not searching, just like learning about new products and brands and services and everything. So it's first and foremost extremely important to really understand your audience as much as possible and where they're spending their time. Of course, if last year, the big threat to Google before TikTok was Amazon. People were starting their product searches on Amazon. I think that still continues to be true. So if you're a B2C company or a company that sells those types of products, you want to focus a lot of your efforts there. And now with the rise of TikTok, which we'll talk about, we know that younger generations are starting many of their searches there, and similar to YouTube Shorts as well. So and one piece of good news about TikTok and YouTube Shorts and video is that Google is responding to this. This is something that they also clearly have said in their communications over the last year. So they understand that young searchers and many searchers want to see a lot of video content, short videos, things like that. So if you do end up focusing on TikTok, you can kind of reuse a lot of that content for YouTube Shorts and kind of like kill two birds with one stone. So just like understanding where your audience is and how they consume content. We've also seen a lot of examples in the SEO space where companies are not integrating their YouTube/TikTok strategies well with organic search. So you can actually use TikTok to create demand. We're seeing many examples where things trend on TikTok and you go to Google and you try to figure out what it is and you just can't. So if you're a brand that's had anything happen on TikTok or you want to create some type of conversation or demand on TikTok, make sure you're supporting that with an organic search strategy. Make sure you have content on your website that kind of speaks to that.
That's a really, really good point. One that's easy to miss if social is siloed kind of separately. And it really speaks to the power of search, organic and paid, to capture and kind of elevate other kind of areas of media strategy. Tim, what's been your experience with the diverse search marketplace?
It is interesting. In the amount of time I've been in the industry, I feel like when I started out, a lot was very heavily focused on just traditional search advertising campaigns. And the longer I've worked in the industry, from going agency side to in-house, seeing more and more people diversify, as we're talking about, where search is never going away. I mean, paid search is fundamental to about any advertising strategy I've been a part of, but having a presence across multiple platforms, whether that be social platforms, YouTube, as mentioned. I think one of the interesting crossovers, which Google themselves are doing more to address, is the ability to incorporate audiences into your targeting, even on the search end of things. So layering on, like, for example, if someone's been to your site or if they fit a category for these people are in market for this product, layering those audiences together with people who are searching different keywords. So, there's intent beyond just the keyword. And even circling back to Performance Max, I think that is kind of a way of forcing advertisers of thinking outside of search. There's upsides and downsides as with the level of control and such, but like with Performance Max, you're not defining I'm bidding on these exact keywords. You're building personas essentially, which could include keywords, but could include audiences and market audiences, your remarketing audiences, your customer list, and such. So essentially shifting people toward thinking more toward an audience, even when it's in a search context, versus thinking toward the keyword. I know we touched on privacy briefly before. That's another area where, with third-party cookies and such going away, building first-party data can be really powerful. It could be like a list of people who've opted in to get information from you. Could be a list of current customers that you use to build a lookalike. Pretty much any social ad platform lets you build a lookalike audience with people who have similar characteristics to your audience. So that's kind of another aspect to think about, just another way to kind of go outside the bucket of traditional search.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much going on. And apologies if anyone can hear, there is an ice cream truck outside my house. It is a beautiful day and it's summer, so maybe it'll make someone else smile. But yeah, there's so much going on here. I think going from an audience first approach, that's something we're seeing across the entire kind of advertising ecosystem. We're seeing it in TV as well, where there are different purchasing strategies that are becoming more prominent because advertisers are refocusing the way they plan around how to reach a particular person. I think that kind of the justification for that, or an underlying trend that that is present in both the TV and video space and the search space, is that fragmentation of there are people that you are seeking to reach, and they are going to be in a wide variety of places these days, much wider than they would have been a couple of years ago, a decade ago. So in the search space, a couple of years ago, it was very much still Google's market. And now there are a lot more places that those consumers can be reached, and different mindsets. I think TikTok is a really interesting space because it kind of, or social search in general, kind of expands the search funnel a little bit, because there is such an interesting opportunity for really upper funnel work in that space that definitely ties into search. And speaking of TikTok, Gen Z, just segue right into it. Gen Z really put TikTok on the map when it comes to search and really, digital advertising more broadly. Obviously, TikTok is not solely a microcosm of Gen Z. There's a lot of different and diverse audiences on TikTok. But it's a really, Gen Z is revolutionizing slowly consumer behavior. That happens with all younger demographics. Eventually, that demographic starts trends, kind of leads the way into the future. So Gen Z is really important for all advertisers to understand in search and elsewhere. What do advertisers need to know about Gen Z's search habits today? Let's start with Tim.
Sure. Yeah, I think again, TikTok is something you can't get away from there. I think when thinking about video formats and such, especially coming from more a traditional mindset, people may just want to rehash the video spots that might have been created for TV, which obviously hasn't worked well even when YouTube was the big place to advertise. And TikTok, it's definitely not going to go well. So thinking of creating content that's actually tailored for that platform, for the audience that you're going after is obviously going to be important. I think Gen Z is very big on authenticity. They're gonna see through BS pretty easily. I mean, not that others can't, but any way that you can communicate that and how you're advertising. So yeah, those would be probably a couple factors to think about there.
Yeah, it's like that's a really good point about authenticity. I think above and beyond the fact that it's video content and it's edited in a certain way, which of course are extremely important to understand, like why, it's very fast paced, like it's kind of shorter attention spans, like it very much speaks to a younger audience right now. The authenticity component is really important because I think a lot of what younger generations, and I think not even just younger generations, a lot of what people take issue with search engines right now, for example, is they feel that the content that they're being served is like faceless almost, like they don't really know who's behind it. With TikTok, you know very well who's creating the content. In fact, you follow that person and you follow people on TikTok, right? Like you're not necessarily following brands. So I think that it's important for brands to think about that. Like, who are the people that work here? Who is the face behind this content? And that actually does echo into what Google's looking for with SEO content nowadays. A lot of the big SEO updates that have happened in the past couple of years, particularly this year, is Google saying, we know people want more faces and more authors, and they're launching a new feature called Perspectives, and they're going to be literally highlighting TikTok videos with different perspectives directly in the search results. So understanding that you can't just be a big anonymous brand publishing content without people knowing who's behind it. I think that's a really important place to focus going forward.
Absolutely. And that has implications outside of search as well. It's just an important kind of way that the consumer and brand relationship is evolving. I have one last question here, and it may be one of those big questions that we still have on the AI front, but Lily, I'm hoping you can maybe shed a little bit of light on how these new AI developments from Google and Microsoft and everyone are changing or will change website design and development, and how advertisers can really harness that SEO activity in a new interface. Are there any first look learnings that you can share with us?
Yeah, that's what we're all trying to get to the bottom of, like as typical SEOs, try to reverse engineer how all this stuff is pulled in. I think at the moment we don't have clear answers. I mean, yesterday I just asked Google some questions like, oh, is this personalized? Are the results personalized? And they said, no, we don't think so, but we're going to check. So it's like, we're all still kind of figuring out how it works. But I think we don't necessarily, like, for example, with SEO, you can add things like structured data, or you can change your headlines, or you can do these different things to kind of tweak how things look in the search results, or kind of enhance how they look. we don't have those answers yet. I'm actually running a number of tests right now to see to what extent, if you change website content, does that impact what gets pulled into the AI answers? So very much still new. We're all still figuring it out. But one nice development, I think, is that with SEO and with Google for many years now, in many cases, it's generally like the big players really get to absorb a lot of the traffic. But we're seeing some examples with these new AI results where like smaller sites and smaller players sometimes get pulled in there. So it might actually create some new opportunities that we didn't have before.
Awesome. So even more diversity in the search marketplace in the future. That is a double-edged sword. It's very exciting, especially as consumers, to be able to kind of choose your own adventure and be able to have more options in how you interact with publishers and just the internet broadly. But then for advertisers, sometimes having a lot of different partners to incorporate into strategies, organic and paid, can be challenging. So hopefully maybe some of these automation-based tools that are coming out may help streamline that. We will see. But that's all we have time for today. It's been really fantastic chatting with you, Tim and Lily. I really appreciate it. And thanks again for taking a couple of questions from our audience as well. I snuck them in there. I don't know if you noticed, but we really appreciate your time. And also thank you to our audience for tuning in. Next, you can join us for a special deep dive session on CTV with Mountain's Ali Hayari. To go there, click on the tab below the video feed that says Next Session. Thanks.